Hello, everybody.
Yeah, great.
Welcome. We just worked out it's our sixth episode already. And this reminds me 6 weeks flew by, completely flew by. And I hope you are loving this as much as Sean and I are loving this conversation. Completely unscripted, completely out of the heart, completely raw and honest and authentic. So that was what we intended, and that's what we will continue to do. So hello, everybody, and welcome to Mystic Musings, the rumblings of a modern day mystic. This is really where we step forwards and we start really shouting from the rooftops about the amazing work that we do, because obviously, mystics have a tendency to sort of work behind the scenes, hide behind things, and work in the shadows and the background. So we are calling all mystics forwards to stand up and to speak out and to find their roar and to really own their power. So welcome, everyone. I'm Marilise de Villiers-Basson, and my co-host is Sean Caudry, and we have a really cool conversation lined up for today. Cool idea. So Sean, I'll let you introduce it and then we'll start rumbling.
Great. Well, welcome everybody, and very excited to be here. So we're going to get into a bit of the nuts and bolts around being able to manifest and the various elements that are involved in it. We're not going to cover it all in today's conversation, but certainly we will make a bit of inroads. And there's a couple of key fundamentals that are absolutely imperative, and one of them that is so fundamental is the idea of shifting your energy body. Now, so many of us speak about frequency, so many of us speak about energy, so many of us speak about, shifting and elevating your frequency and energy and tuning into a new potential. But what does that actually mean? So maybe a little bit of theory as we then go into a bit of the application. If you think about the idea of you have an identity, your current identity is comprised of your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, and then that's kind of held in with a spiritual body. So this is just a bit of a model that I like to work with my clients on as we delve into creating some kind of mechanism the mind can understand when we're dealing with the unseen and the unknown. And so if you think about your current identity is living in a current reality. How do you know what your current reality is? Very simply, I call it your echo chamber. Your echo chamber is the reality that is surrounding you and what is evident in your reality in the form of your relationship, your finances, your career, your friendships, your hobbies that you enjoy, the places that you live, the places that you go visit. So all of those things, you can imagine you've got this chamber and you have populated it with a whole lot of things or experiences that you are now getting to experience from the level of mind and consciousness of the current identity that you are, remembering that your identity is your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, and that's held by a spiritual body. So these four bodies are interacting. There are more layers to it, but I'm going to keep it simple for the purposes of this particular conversation. So if you can imagine that if this makes up your current reality and your current identity in relationship, let's say in relationship to, for example, money, then you need not look no further than what echoed back to you. And that's why the concept of echo chamber in your current reality. Look in your echo chamber, whatever's been echoed back to you will tell you exactly your current level of consciousness and your current level of mind in the context of what you've created. Now, if you're sitting and you're a multi-million-dollar individual and you're feeling happy and fulfilled and everything is hunky-dory in relationship to your money, then well done to you. You're doing this really, really well. But I can say that that's not the majority of individuals. We've been programmed very much into the construct that there is scarcity, that there's only a little bit, and that when you are in a certain job or a certain role, or even if you're an entrepreneur, everybody looks at benchmarks. Everyone looks at what is the industry doing? What are others doing? That's such an external set of agency where you give away your power because someone out there constructed a certain level with which you could earn or not earn. Someone else has decided, and that goes back to our conversation around self-selection. but let's take it back to your current level identity. So this level of identity, this level of mind that you have, has either created an experience with money that is very easeful, that flows, or it's something that's riddled with fear. It's something that is riddled with anxiety. It's something that's riddled with worry. It's something that's riddled with not enough, right? And then you look at your reality and how money is coming into you. Is it stuck? Do people pay you on time? Is it flowing easily to you? Is there an overflow of money? And so you start to get an idea then in terms of some of the consciousness that you carry around money. And I wanted to just speak around then, very importantly, the most powerful activator and movement of the needle in terms of shifting your reality is then working into the emotional body. Because when you look at your current identity, your thoughts are powerful. Your emotions are 5,000 times more powerful than your thoughts. And there's research around that with HeartMath Institute around demonstrating that the heart, which the heart is the seat of the soul, the heart is the seat of emotions, is 5,000 times more powerful in terms of amplitude and frequency and energy vibration than a thought. However, when we feel badly about something, it hijacks the thoughts and we start to have negative thoughts. So I would say the emotions, in my view, the emotions actually hijack the thought process. And whatever the emotional feeling is, then encapsulates, you can imagine, then wraps its arms around your thoughts and hugs your thoughts, and now they're big buddies. And so there becomes this melting pot. When you get into a fear cycle about money and there's not enough and you've got to pay the bills and you're looking at your bank account and you've got the school fees to pay and then you've got the hospital bills to pay and it's like, have I got enough money? The mind immediately goes to, but the feeling comes first that then hijacks the thoughts. And then we play out certain actions. We hoard, we get stingy, we hold back. When we're looking at tipping someone in a restaurant, we wonder how much, let me just give the 10% or whatever it is, and so it becomes then constricted, and so the whole body, you can imagine, is now just constricted. Well, what happens to, I mentioned the spiritual body. Well, what happens to the spiritual body? When I refer to the spiritual body, simplest terms, it's more involved in this, but a very simple term is we all hold an aura, or if you want to call it your electric magnetic field, let's call that the spiritual body for now, energy body for lack of, for another way to say it. This holds all the information of your thoughts and your emotions and your actions, and it's containing all it's communicating all the time. It's holding all the information and communicating with the field. So you can imagine when you're getting all fear and constricted and you're about to pay the bills and you're all tight in like this, your electromagnetic field gets very small. And so that means then that there's very little influence and the frequency is very low and constricted as well in your energy body. And so I'm going to hand over to Marlies now, but just to say before I go into the idea of building out, really important to build out the key thing that needs to shift if you've got to create a new level of energy body from the perspective, a new energy signature around money. And that's one of the most challenging things to do because the current energy signatures are at a certain set point, and that is the addiction. We are addicted to the emotions. We're addicted to the feelings. We're addicted to that hijacking, which then ultimately leads into various actions and behaviors. So I'm going to loop back to the energy body and the energy signature in a little bit, but I wanted to hand over to Marlies because I know she's got some great contributions to build on the concept of craving.
Yes, I think everything you're saying is resonating so much with me, and this might seem like a little bit of a random example, but a lot of the work I'm currently doing with my personal trainer is around the money, the body, mind, soul connection, and I'm sort of like really thinking about how everything really comes so beautifully together and how we connect it. So every time she does something with me, so this morning I was doing a sort of an awkward seat pose, and I had to sort of really lean back, and it was like that moment of feeling like I'm losing my balance and I'm going back and I'm gonna fall on my bum basically, and I kept sort of contracting and not going and resisting and there was a moment where I just sort of went into it and I just relaxed into it. And it was like, I did it. And I had this moment of, gosh, this is what letting go feels like. But we try so hard to hold on to things. And that example for me this morning was so prevalent in this kind of creating this whole, like, you know, we say intellectually, you must let go. But then when you feel in your body what letting go feels like, it's a completely different sensation. It gets a completely new meaning. So I love what you're saying about the emotions and the heart and the feeling it is sort of 5 times. Did you say 5,000 times more powerful? I mean, and
Yes.
that just made me like sit up and realize how much I am hijacking myself when I'm not feeling good, when I'm actually really, as you say, contracting and stressing and trying to control situations. And, you know, that sort of like, if we kind of continue the theme of the money, you know, it's like getting into that scarcity mindset and just feeling like really, really like, oh, everything's kind of like fall apart, etc., etc. So really powerful kind of just for me in terms of practically applying it right now, today, in an example that happened this morning in my life.
Yeah.
So yes,
So
I think that's really, so I think the whole idea of raising that frequency, feeling more joyful, more abundant, you know, more prosperous, just having that sort of praise for life and gratitude for life. I think that's really where my head is going with the how. And I don't sort of necessarily think we should jump straight in the how, but I think we wanted today to share a little bit more of the how. So so let's talk more about that.
Okay. So what does it mean then if you're wanting to create a different reality, let's say just with money? And let's take a small thing, a small element of money. So I invite all the viewers to think of what would you like to receive? Let's say you're wanting to actually receive, you've got to get a little bit specific. So let's say you're wanting to receive this week. And I love to play quantum games. I play one quantum game a week with my clients in my program. And so the quantum game that we played the other day was around the lottery. But I'm going to do a small version of that. So let's say you wanted to receive 500 Rand, $500, 500 euros. I don't know, pick a number that intuitively you would just like to in the next week receive practically via EFT, via cash. You can decide whatever that it is, in a way that surprises and delights you. Just make it something small, not something complex. So now let's take the concept of level of identity. So you know that your identity comprises your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, and your spiritual body. As I said, there's more elements to it, but let's make, for simplistic purposes, that's going to be sufficient to accomplish what you're wanting to accomplish. So the idea then is, in order to create something new in your echo chamber, to have a different level of experience with money in your echo chamber, you've got to start defining what is the experience that you actually want with money. So there should be a level of dissatisfaction and discontentment, which is actually the precursor to starting to want something more, something better. And it's a necessary precursor. You want to look at any area in your life, just generally the concept of where you are experiencing discontentment or dissatisfaction, that is signaling to you that is now time for whatever is happening in that area of your life to be released. The pattern, the program is ready to be released. So I want to just come back. Let's just say we're talking around money. It's $500, 500 Rand, pick a number. Very basically, how the process works is that we are actually made up of space, right? Actually, we only matter takes up 0.0001% of everything that we could see. So even though you're seeing yourself in physical form, you're seeing 7 billion humans in physical form, you're seeing buildings and all of that kind of stuff, that is actually only 0.0001% of everything that exists. That means that 99% of what exists is not seen. If you really let that sink in, I'll say it again, it means that 99.9% of what doesn't exist remains in the unseen. It's not yet seen, which means that 99.9% of space holds all the potentialities that could still currently be brought into fruition, into physical manifestation. So there's a lot of growthful possibility. In other words, there are plenty of possibilities that still exist out around us. And so if you can just get your mind to kind of move off the focusing of what the current reality in terms of its senses and start expanding into possibility of what else could exist in space, that comes into reality. But how do you pull something into reality? Well, let's think about it. Everything is made up of fractals. Anyone who's familiar with geometry, everything is made up of a geometric pattern, including yourself. So that would mean then, let's say you're wanting to manifest $500. $500 exists out in space in some way, shape, or form in a certain fractal pattern. But the pattern, if I want an EFT, the pattern for $500 is a certain pattern for an EFT. There'll be a certain pattern for $500 received in cash. If you wanted to receive $1,000, there's a different pattern. So if you've seen a kaleidoscope and the kaleidoscope keeps changing patterns, there'll be a pattern for $1,000. There'll be a pattern for $5,000. There'll be a pattern for $5 million. There'll be a pattern for $5 billion. The fractal just changes the pattern. Now, the idea is that you have to shift your identity, so your emotions, your thinking, your actions, and then your spiritual body now, because if everything actually exists now, we just can't see it. The idea is that you've got to shift your identity, your level of thinking, your level of mind, your level of actions now to a high level of frequency. In other words, the frequency has to match that fractal now that can pull in the fractal of the unseen $500. But there's a space that exists between what you see and what you don't see. And so as you raise your frequency and become the new identity of the $500 to be received now out of the blue from you don't know, you've got to leave the how alone. Your job is to identify where you're dissatisfied. Your job is to become a different level of thinking, a different level of emotion, and a different level of action, and therefore spiritual body to receive it. So how do you do that? Well, what would it be like? Who do you need to be to just receive out of the blue $500 or 500 Rand? Who is that person? That's a person who believes that they're worthy of receiving 500 Rand out the blue, or worthy of receiving the $500. That's a person who believes, who is a mystic, because a mystic would never doubt that something like this was possible, that a miracle is possible. A mystic would never doubt in the conviction and faith that when their heart says $500, that it's going to be delivered, that it's locked in, anchored in, that it's done. And so having that level of set of faith and conviction is one element. There's the beliefs that you hold that it is going to be delivered, the expectation, there is no other choice, it's going to be delivered. And then the action is you're going into meditation, or you're going into some kind of contemplation practice, or you're beaming out the energy, or you are up leveling somehow, whatever it is that your action, your practical action is. The action is not about going and getting it. The action is about it must come to you. You know you're doing it really well when you become the magnet for it to come. What does it feel like when you suddenly receive the $500 out the blue from someone? Fuck, it feels fucking amazing. Good grief. It's like, oh my God, look how clever I am. That's so joyful. I loved receiving that. It just came out the blue. And so there's excitement. There's a generative joy. There's a love for life. There's like, oh, I'm so clever. Now, look at your current energy level. You can even see that as I'm talking about it. I'm talking about something that's very practical, and I'm giving you the theory. And then as soon as I imagine myself receiving the $500, I'm like, whoa, check it that. That's the shift in the emotional body. That's the shift in the energy signature that has to happen. When I allow myself to imagine it, I'm going, so the version of me that's expressing to you in the first 15 minutes of this conversation, and the version of me that's just received it, you can even see there's a shift just in that. Yeah. So the idea is I need to be the version of myself now that's excited now. And so I'm lifting my whole energy body, which lifts the whole frequency, which then allows the fractal to be drawn to me and become a magnet, so it can come through from space, through the 4D, through the plasma, and then take material form. So that's my journey of that.
That's so awesome, and
Marilis.
I think what really, yeah, wow, you kind of explained it so well, and I kept sat here thinking, oh my goodness, that opportunity to really lean into the belief and the conviction that it is actually happening, and that it's the trust that it's happening, like belief, trust, conviction. We've mentioned this on a previous call in terms of how important it is, the whole manifestation and raising that energy body, the frequency, belief, trust, conviction are so important. And something that really, I think for me, I'm sort of leaning into a lot at the moment is kind of the whole element of praise. So, if we have a desire or a discontent, so we're saying that the wanting more, the knowing that I'm meant for more, comes from a discontent typically, or a deep desire. When we expect that, and our expectation matches the desire or the discontent, that's where we raise the frequency, and that's where we call it in. But the same way we have faith, the faith element has to be matched with praise. And so your words that you use are just slightly different to the way that I describe it, and saying that actually you have to believe, you have to have faith at the same time. To raise that energy body, you've got to really praise. You've got to be grateful and express that gratitude for the fact that it's already happened. So really, as you say, bring it into the now, as if it's already happened. And the gratitude and the praise, I think it's so important that you think about it in the context of what you are grateful for, what you're praising. I think Mary Morrissey she uses a lot, like I've heard her say a lot, and what you praise raises. But what's really amazing for me about the whole gratitude and the praise is also the gratitude and the praise for self, and the self-love element of it. And the reason I'm sort of like presencing that for us is because I've recently done some work, actually just in fact last night, I've done some work with my coach where she made us think about someone we're grateful for and what it is that we're so grateful about, and then switching it to ourselves. And that was quite an emotional moment for me, because, I had to really be honest about how often do I actually praise myself? How often am I grateful for me and how I show up and what I do every day? Because that's such a crucial part of it, the whole sort of self-love part of it. So, so for me, that was like, oh my gosh, maybe 20% of the time I would do that, so there was a real gap in terms of, I'm being so hard on myself generally. I'm always like, it's like it has to be hard work, graft, push. We're so conditioned. And so I just wanted to really share that, because I think it's helpful for people to be a little bit just honest about, are you actually being really unkind to yourself, and how often do you actually express the same gratitude and praise for you and how you show up and who you are, than compared to sort of external factors.
So good, Marilee, so good. I love that you brought that up. I mean, you bring up so many gems in there, and many of them are held in what I call the golden keys of creatorship. And gratitude, being grateful, and if you struggle, to be honest, I really struggle to even now to tune into gratitude, because gratitude holds a bit of a one under inferior. It's like, oh, I'm so grateful you gave this to me, or I received the creation, and it's a bit of a, I kind of grapple with it. So I'm on a journey with gratitude at the moment. I like to use celebration. Celebration has a great frequency, so don't forget to celebrate, and really go out and try this just for a week or 2 weeks. Go out and try. Just take a small amount. It doesn't have to be $500, 100 Rand, $100, 100 euros, whatever it is of your currency, and just start playing with. Play is the idea, and then when you receive it is to celebrate, right? And celebration now is similar to what if you grapple with gratitude and difficult to get into a feeling of gratitude, appreciation. and celebration are two other forms. Marlies, you bring up some good points, and points that we can bring up, delve into next week, is the idea of the expectation gap, the manifestation expectation gap. Is so critical. You also mentioned, and it's just slipped my mind, sorry, menopause can do this to me momentarily. As you were talking, I'm like, oh, that's such a great point. And I forgot, I'll have to go back and listen to the episode a little bit that you shared. But we can go into some of the ideas then, for example, because it's not always a bed of roses, but when I look at my current situation, so I want to speak around next week how, first of all, I created from debt many years ago to sort of financial abundance. I'm still in abundance, but I'm actually in quite a different financial situation at the moment, with the move to America, with building my businesses. But the ask is really to go on to, because when we talk around the identity, we're actually being asked to go to the next level of identity. You've been asked to release the armor. So you spoke around earlier, surrendering. So how have you armored up? And so we can speak around, the armoring up and what needs to be dismantled in the armoring up. We can speak around, because this is, we want the channel to be truthful. So I can share how I lost $23,000 and managed to recreate it a month later. But also just sort of recreating the same, let's say the same income right now as what I was had in my corporate job as I build my business, and I'm just shy of that, and I've done it in 3 months. So I can share some of the practicalities, but the things that it's provoking in me is a whole different level of fear, anxiety that I couldn't have uncovered unless I'd done the move to America, which we know that the rand, it's 20-to-1 exchange rate, so it's been a huge shift. And in terms of abundance, in terms of income, there's been all sorts of nuances that I'm experiencing. I've had money stuck in an investment. I've had money that, as I say, I lost overnight, $23,000. I'd lost, another, I don't know what it was, I think $18,000 in the space of, let's call it 8 months. So I'm having this real money provoking experience at the moment, but really valuable to see, well, how is this serving? What's the ask of me? What is going on? And me being able to delve really deeply into my echo chamber, and have a look in my echo chamber, what's playing out, and then working with, oh, wow, these are super subtle patterns. And that is like the next level of identity now that is ready to be dropped, and what it's provoking, and how I'm moving out of it, and what I'm working with practically, so we can have a look at some of the dirty details to show what I'm practically actually doing.
Yeah, and I think that sort of resonates with me a lot, because I think there's obviously in our current identity, what is keeping us from that new identity is a very, very rooted, limiting belief, an old story, and it is about when you lean into the new curriculum, in into the new identity, that's where you then are, confronted. I think for me, it sometimes feels like you're really confronted with that new reality.
It is confronting,
and it's the old you that has to die, and that is a whole grieving process, and it just also takes patience and persistence. You can't just expect it to happen. I mean, yes, it can just happen like that as well. But I think for the majority of us, it's really a process, and that's where you've got to lean into the kindness to yourself, being patient with yourself, but also, not giving up. So I can really relate with a lot of what you're saying. Me coming the other way, coming to South Africa, and also building a global online business like you. Not necessarily being, dependent on any type of currency. I think that's kind of the goal, in terms of, you can work from anywhere, you can do what you do, you can do what you want, when you want to, how you want to. That's certainly what I'm working towards. And yes, of course, the opportunities to really lean into, it is possible to live in South Africa and have a thriving global business. I'm also navigating a lot of that at the moment. So I'm looking forward to sharing, and the shared experience is really, I think. And again, I'm hoping it's helping our listeners, our viewers, because I can certainly imagine that most people have, in some area of their life, have something that they're grappling with, whether it's health, whether it's finances, whether it's relationships, whether it's kind of creating time and money freedom. So I think it's really important to, we're obviously using our personal experiences, and as Sean said, we want to keep it real, we want to keep it authentic. And at the same time, we want you to be able to relate it to your scenario and really help to move you forwards as well. So thank you for joining us today. If you're watching the replay, thank you for watching the replay. Thank you for joining. And please do let us know if you have any thoughts, any inspired ideas, any particular topics that you would love us to go deeper into. This is we showing up to serve you every week, same time, same place. And we just love to get your feedback. Also, if you love this, do subscribe, because then you'll get a notification every week when we are live. So brilliant.
Beautiful.
Sean, always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure, Marilee. Lovely to hear you. And I loved what you said. And next week we're going to pick up with, there's a huge wealth transfer to women at the moment. So just to pick up what you were saying, Marilee, I know there's a number of let's say, modern day mystics who are into entrepreneurship and etc. And so the way that's going. And next week we'll pick up with how this huge shift in wealth is happening over the next 10 years into females, and how you're wanting to position yourself energetically, because with that is going to come a huge energetic shift in what that means. So looking forward to continuing the conversation, and just positioning us all for great lives, and sharing the in-depths, the nuts and bolts of creatorship and manifestation with you.
That sounds super exciting. I'm so in for this ride. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Lovely, everybody. Take care.
Bye. Bye.